Hello everybody, welcome back to 10 Minute Reviews. Jason here. Sorry it's been a little while since I posted a video. I'll try and make this pretty quick. Thank you to all of our patrons, all of our supporters. Really appreciate it. Don't forget to check the links down below for links to today's book and anything else that we might find applicable. I need to have some traffic through that Amazon thing that you guys suggest in order for it to keep going. Otherwise, I'm going to go ahead and jump right into today's video. So today we're going to talk about a series that I've talked about in the past, talked about every book up to this point, an author that I really enjoy, Cebelius. Like I say about a lot of our authors, God, I hope that's a pen name, but regardless, Cebelius. And those of you guys that have been watching my channel long enough know where I'm about to go with this. Would You Love a Monster Girl? His series, Would You Love a Monster Girl? Now, I did have somebody call me out on this, which is a good point. I always list this under the harem lit, even though it is not really harem lit because it's single relationships, but I tend to list it under there because of how explicit the scenes can get at times, and that seems to be sort of in the harem lit genre more often than not. But yes, technically it's just men's romance or whatever you want to call it. I usually use harem lit kind of as a catch-all for anything that really has any sort of explicit scenes, or, of course, the harem. So, Would You Love a Monster Girl 6, Karina, by Cebelius. So, all the books tie together. They all tie together subtly, but they all tie together. The events of previous books typically cause the next book, although totally different characters. Typically, each book, the main character was a tiny brief little mention in previous books, and the subject of their book, when they're the main characters, typically the consequences of things that had happened in previous books. So here we've got Will Morgan. And Will Morgan is part of the Morgan brothers, two criminal mob bosses in a way. But they tend to approach things somewhat differently. They're both mob bosses, both extremely dangerous, both I won't say amoral criminals because they do have somewhat of a code of conduct. But you've got Will and his brother. Now, his brother tends to be more of the managerial type, while Will is pretty much known as the volatile warrior. Do not mess with this guy, he will kill you in a heartbeat type. So this book starts out with, they have fallen. Their influence and power has fallen, and the book starts out with an attack on the Morgan brothers and their criminal enterprises. One brother is killed, and Will discovers that he basically is given a choice. Get the hell out of town or die. And he makes the decision. It's a hard decision for him, but his brother's own request, he makes the decision, dying request even, to actually leave. To go, okay, fine. I was a criminal empire. I lost. I'm out. And takes off. And kind of the idea behind Will's thought processes as well is with his brother's death and the loss of pretty much everything that he had up to this point, this big criminal empire that he had built, he decides that maybe it's time for him to start over, not just start over in life and in business and in crime, but start over in how he approaches life. He's kind of a little bit tired of one, being the criminal, but two, being the boss. He doesn't want to be the boss anymore. He just wants to be his own boss and not be responsible for other people. Now, unfortunately, some of his most loyal retainers refuse to leave him, even though he tells them to go, and they travel with him. So he decides he's going to leave the city, and he basically wants to break good, I suppose, breaking good. He basically wants to leave the criminal life behind, and he doesn't know, he has no goals, has no plans, doesn't know where he's going to go, but he's going to go start over. And then, of course, things go downhill. Typical, a bar fight. Just a bar fight in some little podunk, no-name bar, and it's a minotaur. A minotaur that is a peaceful minotaur that is being ganged up on by, well, a gang. And Will steps in, handles the gang problem, but unfortunately said minotaur is killed, and he gives Will the information of what he is doing and why he is there. Basically, these minotaurs are farmers. The Minotaur clan are farmers, small villagers, peaceful minotaurs living in a small little village out in the wilds, and they are being harassed, attacked, taken over by a gang, and this gang works for a dragon, for a full-fledged dragon. And this Minotaur was traveling to try and find people to help this town fight off the gang. Will decides that sounds like a fine idea, so he heads on out there himself, and his followers travel along with him. They're much more hardcore criminal than Will is. Well, one of them is in love with Will, unrequited, of course, but for the most part, they are hardcore criminals, but they are extremely loyal to Will, which is why they're following him. So this book revolves around Will and the Minotaur named Karina. And of course, would you love a monster girl? Karina. I think you guys know where this is going. So Karina is the widow of the Minotaur that was killed when Will met all of them. And he has to convince them to leave. He has to convince them to leave. The only way they are going to survive is if they can make it back to the city, and not into the city. He's not sure he can get them entrance into the city, but he might be able to get them protection, because while these cities and their walls and their defenses to keep people, especially dragons and such, out for the most part, there are little encampments basically around the edge of the wall. They live in the shadow of the wall and are protected by the wall itself. In theory, they don't get the same protections. Cops and the military aren't coming out to stop crime and stuff like that, but they'll get protection from the big stuff, such as a dragon. So he convinces them to flee. And unfortunately, he finds himself injured and eventually discovers a little magical property, 'cause very convenient, in Minotaur milk, which does heal him, but it also makes him extremely dependent upon the Minotaurs. He has to have, it's a drug. It's a healing drug, but it's a drug that he has to have frequently or he will die. And it kind of ties him to this Minotaur village. He doesn't really care. He's also kind of at the point where, should he die, he doesn't really give two damns, but just enough to keep him around. And of course, then things build up between him and Karina. And this book is interesting. It's just as much slice of life, at least the relationship side, as all the other Would You Love a Monster Girl books. While at the same time does have an overarching plot, only this time the overarching plot isn't necessarily, find the bad guy or solve the mystery, as so much as run and survive. And it works out. It works well. It's a good book. This whole series has been absolutely fantastic, and I can't wait for the next one. Thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll catch you next time. Bye now.